Hello and good evening. This is Maria Di Blasi again, and I am with Bridge to Health New Mexico. And today is the second installment of the Risk is Real, talking about obesity presentation. We are going to be doing a presentation and talking about a little bit about the causes, but mainly about the consequences of being obese. We are going to be using a PowerPoint presentation as usual, but also I'm going to help myself with a few videos today. I hope you enjoy. I hope it is educational. And remember that if you have any questions, doubts, or comments you would like, please leave them below in the comment section and we will get back to you. Let's begin. Okay, so if you will excuse me, we are going to be jumping between the presentation and the videos. So, the risk is real. The facts about obesity and its effect on your health. Let's start with the numbers. Obesity by the numbers. So 9 million is the number of children and teens between 6 and 19 years old that are affected by obesity. 112,000 is the number of annual deaths attributed to obesity. 93 million people is the number of Americans who are obese. 30 plus is the BMI number where people are started to be qualified as obese. And then the last number is obesity contributes to 8 of the top 10 causes of death in the United States. So 8 out of 10. How are those numbers? So overweight and obesity are increasingly common conditions in the United States. They are caused by the increase in size and the amount of fat cells in the body. Doctors measure body mass index and waist circumference to screen and diagnose overweight and obesity. Obesity is a serious medical condition that can cause complications such as metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, atherosclerosis, heart disease, diabetes, high blood cholesterol, cancers, and sleep disorders, only to name a few. We're going to go through a little bit more in depth right now, but these are just the top of the list. Now, treatment depends on the cause and the severity of your condition and whether you have complications because of these conditions. Treatments can include lifestyle changes, such as healthy eating and increase physical activity. And the Food and Drug, the FDA approved weight loss medicines. For some people, surgery might even be a treatment option too. So, causes. Causes of obesity can be wide and varied, but basically we can summon them pretty much into, first one and foremost, eating too much, genetics, certain medications will cause you to be overweight, of course stress, poor sleep, and hormonal imbalance. So, according to the American Institute of Cancer Research, some of other causes of weight gain would be, of course, our diet, Western diet, a lot of fast foods, screen time in adults, sugar sweetened drinks, and of course, screen time in children. And what can decrease obesity and being overweight? Walking, aerobic physical activity, foods containing dietary fiber, a Mediterranean type dietary pattern, or having been breastfed, believe it or not. Okay, before we go into the unhealthy lifestyle habits, I would like for us to talk a little bit of, we're going to watch a small video about the risk factors. Okay, so we're going to watch a video. I'm going to do a little bit of volume on my side, and here we go.
So in my perspective, you could see that the risk of becoming obese is dependent on these factors. The genetic risk is basically unmodifiable. And we see that individuals that have a higher genetic predisposition, they have a higher risk of becoming obese, independently of a lot of lifestyle factors. So you are definitely more sensitive towards the environment that we live in. The gut microbes are semi-modifiable. You're born with some bugs, and the early life is affecting which bugs you have. However, what you eat and how you live is a very large determinant factor of which bugs survive in your gut, and that actually affect your possibility to stay healthy. Then you can use this super modifiable lifestyle to affect your bugs that can then affect your health. Lifestyle is so modifiable, and you can actually determine which lifestyle you want to have and what you want to eat and how you want to move, etc. But it's probably also determined by your gut and your genes. So it's sort of a circle. We have probably individuals with high genetic predisposition, bad bugs, and a bad lifestyle. Their risk of becoming obese is very high. But then we probably have individuals with high genetic predisposition, but with a good lifestyle, and then they have good microbes that make their risk very low, even though they have a genetic predisposition for obesity. So you could see that there are like different areas of risk that you can modify or not, and that will probably affect the end product, the BMI at its end. And in my opinion, it will sound so easy that it's energy in and energy out, but if you think about it, there's so many factors about how easy it is for you as a person to keep the balance of energy in and energy out, which is in the end the most important thing.
So that is a little bit of what it is that can cause obesity. There are many things that we can do. Some of them, of course, are lifestyle changes, which is, we're going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk a little bit about what it is that is what we said before, unhealthy lifestyle habits. So, lack of physical activity, unhealthy eating patterns, not enough sleep, and high amounts of stress can increase your risk for being overweight and obesity. So think about what your lifestyles lack. is lacking, or what it is that needs to be changed. So lack of physical activity. Lack of physical activity due to high amounts of TV, computer, video game, or other screen usage has been associated with a high body mass index. Healthy lifestyle changes, such as being physically active and reducing screen time, can help you aim for a healthy weight. The other one is unhealthy eating behaviors or unhealthy eating patterns. Some unhealthy eating behaviors can increase your risk for being overweight or obese. Eating more calories than you use, meaning the amount of calories you need will be based on, of course, sex, age, and your physical activity level. Eating too much fats, that being saturated or trans fat, and eating foods high in added sugars. So remember, check your diet also. Another bad habit is not having enough sleep. Many studies have seen a high BMI in people who do not get enough sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? Some studies have seen a relationship between sleep and the way your body uses nutrients for energy, and how the lack of sleep can affect the hormones that control hunger urges. Meaning, the less you sleep, the more it is that you will probably feel hunger all the time. So you can also go and visit sleep deprivation and deficiency health topics to look for more information about this lack of sleep. And of course, the last one is high amounts of stress. An acute stress or chronic stress also affect the brain and triggers the production of hormones, for example, cortisol. These are controlling our energy balances and our hunger urges. So acute stress can trigger hormone changes that make you also not want to eat. If the stress becomes chronic, if you're stressed all the time, hormone changes can make you eat more and store more fat. So think about that for a minute. If you're stressed for just a little bit of time, then your body doesn't want to eat. But if you're stressed all the time, then your body will go into overdrive and will want food and more, and will keep storing the fat. So let's talk about a little bit about being obese and overweight. A person whose body weight exceeds his recommended weight range by 20% or more has 3 times the risk of a heart attack, more than that of a person who is within the healthy weight range. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. Overweight and obesity has increased risk of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes. Now, how do we calculate our body mass index? You do your weight in kilograms divided into the height by height. Now, I'm going to give you an easier formula to do this, so don't worry about this formula right now. Again, the contributing factors of obesity: physical inactivity, overeating, slow metabolism, genetics, lack of sleep, and childhood weight gain. If a child is obese, it will have a higher probability of being obese as an adult. Ideally, your BMI should be between 18.5 to 22.9. Okay, before we go into how to calculate our BMI, I am going to share another one of the videos we got today. I'm sorry. Okay, these talk a little bit about the concept.
Obesity can result in serious consequences to your health. 1 in 3 American adults is obese, and the number is growing.
Obesity is a chronic condition in which a person has too much body fat. Excess fat stresses the body in numerous ways. In fact, obesity is directly linked to more than 30 serious illnesses and can be a contributing factor in numerous others. One of the most serious and possibly deadly consequences of obesity is an increased risk of coronary heart disease and heart attacks. Excess body fat may lead to an increased risk of developing certain types of cancer. Studies have found that obesity contributes to esophageal, gastric, colorectal, and breast cancer. Overweight individuals are also more likely to develop type 2 diabetes, a disease that results in harmful levels of blood sugar in the body. Nearly 90% of type 2 diabetics are obese. Doctors have also found direct ties between excess weight and high blood pressure, which increases the chances of having a stroke or kidney disease. Other consequences of obesity are not necessarily life-threatening, but can still be serious and distressing. Changes in hormone levels associated with excess weight can decrease fertility in obese women, making it harder to have children. Obesity can also contribute to irregular menstrual cycles. Pregnant women who are obese are more likely to contract gestational or pregnancy-related diabetes. Obesity and a sedentary lifestyle may increase the risk of blood clots in the legs, as well as result in a pulmonary embolism, a condition where blood clots block lung arteries. Overeating and unhealthy diets are primary causes of obesity, and obese patients are more likely to suffer from indigestion and constipation. Obesity itself also increases the likelihood that a person will contract problems in the GI tract and stomach, like liver disease and gallstones. Obese women complain more often of incontinence and an intermittent, strong urge to urinate, but these symptoms can go away with minor weight loss. When people are obese, it can also result in a variety of common aches and pains because the excess weight puts too much pressure on parts of the body. The onset and symptoms of osteoarthritis can often be linked to obesity. The complications of obesity can continue even when people are asleep. Sleep apnea is a condition where a person stops breathing periodically in the night. This causes frequent bouts of sleep disturbance and may make people more tired during the day. Decreased oxygen can also cause long-term strain on the heart. Additionally, society can be cruel to those who suffer from obesity. Severe depression and eating disorders are more likely to occur in people who are overweight. But there is good news. A reduction of just 5 to 10% of body weight can significantly improve health. If you have concerns about your weight, please make an appointment with your doctor.
Okay, so those are in general. We will go into these again of what we can expect if we are obese. So how do I know if I am or if I'm not obese? So we need to calculate our body mass index. So usually what they say is your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. But there is a much simpler technique that is easier to do. In other words, all we got to do is we're going to measure our waist. One of the most telling indicators of good health and healthy weight is a waist circumference. Indeed, too large a waist indicates a presence of abdominal fat, also called visceral fat, which is very dangerous for your health. This is a result, of course, of being obese or overweight. So how do you know if your waistline is proportional to your size? So here's what we're going to do. You're going to stand up straight and relax. You exhale. You are going to locate your hip bones, okay? And you're going to wrap a tape measure around your body just above them. A good spot to aim for is halfway between your hip bone and the lowest one of your ribs. In most people, this spot is just above this belly button, okay? So think about it, right just on top of the belly button. And then make sure the tape measure is flat against your body and parallel to the floor. It should be snug against the skin, but not tight, okay? So let's just look at the small image right here on the side. Stand up straight and exhale. Then wrap the tape measure just above your hip bones. I'm going to say just over your belly button. Hold the tape measure flat against the body, not too tight, and take the reading. So, there are several risks associated with waist circumference larger than 35 inches in women and 40 inches in men. That's what we're looking for. In women, it needs to be 35 inches or less. In men, it needs to be 40 inches or less. What are the risks associated with a bigger circumference? We have type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia, which pretty much is like diabetes, glucose intolerance, blood fat disorders, dementia, impaired pulmonary function, metabolic syndrome, certain types of cancer, and of course, death. So what did I mean when they say metabolic syndrome? Metabolic syndrome is a cluster, is a group of medical conditions that occur together and increase the risk for diabetes, increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. Abdominal or central obesity, meaning having a large belly, large waist, along with insulin resistant are considered the two most important risk factors. Okay, so what does this mean? There are a lot of consequences of being overweight and diabetic. But one of the most prominent ones is if you are obese and diabetic, you may run the risk of getting not one, not two, but a group of these conditions at the same time, which will make it even higher your risk of getting very, very sick and almost dying or dying. So there's difference between complications and consequences. Okay, so complications are just, I'm going to say, relatively treatable. So we have sleep apnea, lung disease, liver disease, gallstones, some cancers, stroke, heart disease, diabetes, pancreatitis, arthritis, and gout. But obesity actually has a lot more health risks, which have longer consequences. We have type 2 diabetes, dyslipidemia. We have a higher risk of cancers, a lot of mood disorders, depression, anxiety, heart disease, reproductive disorders, liver disease, or what is called fatty liver disease, hypertension. Like I said at the beginning, there is a list of things that come with being overweight and obese, which truly cannot be summarized into an hour. But if you think about it, the general sense is you have a higher risk of cancer, you have an extremely higher risk of heart disease, reproductive disorders, hypertension, and diabetes. Let's just talk about the cancers. These are the cancers that are associated with being overweight or obese. We have meningioma, which is the cancer in the tissue that covers your brain and your spinal cord. We have adenocarcinoma of the esophagus. In other words, you get a tumor in your esophagus. We have multiple myeloma, which means you get cancer in the blood cells. You get cancer of the kidney. You get cancer of the endometrium, which is cancer in the tissue which is lining in the uterus. You can get cancer in the ovary. You get cancer in the thyroid. You can get breast cancer for, that's mainly postmenopausal women, but it can happen to any women. Cancer in the liver, cancer in the gallbladder, cancer in the upper stomach, cancer in the pancreas, cancer in the colon and the rectum. Okay, so just in this chart, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 types of cancer that are associated with being overweight and or obese. Think about that for a minute. Now, also, another one of the consequences of it is heart disease. In an analysis of clinical data collected on more than 9,000 people, researchers have shown that the number of years spent overweight or obese appears to add up to a factor that make those with a longer history of heaviness more likely to get a marker that's called silent heart damage. What does that mean? This means that the longer you are overweight, the higher the risk of you having heart damage. So, if you've only been obese, look at the chart on the right. If you have only been obese for 10 years, your risk of getting heart disease is only 1.5 times higher than normal. If you've been obese for 20 years, your risk goes up to 1.6 times. 30 years is twice as much, 40 years is 2.4 times, and 50 years obese, you're 3 times more likely than a normal person that hasn't been overweight to get heart disease. So, for every 10 years that a person is obese, the risk of having a heart damage increases 1.25 times, meaning once in a quarter more than a regular person. So that's what we need to do. Another one of the consequences is getting what they call a fatty liver. The fatty liver is caused by the accumulation of excess fat in liver cells in the form of triglycerides. If it's left untreated, fatty liver can increase the risk of cirrhosis and liver cancer. Fatty liver can occur at any age, but it is more common in people ranging from 40 to 50 years and older, as what happens is your metabolism slows. Now, what are the causes of non-alcoholic fatty liver tissue disease? Causes, number one, diet that is high in fats, sugars, and carbohydrates. Being obese. Having medical conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, hepatitis. Of course, certain medications that affect the liver and excess of iron in the liver. What are the symptoms? Fatty liver can be a silent killer because the progression of the disease is very gradual. Most patients experience little to no symptoms, leaving them unaware of their condition until it is too critical. Please go and check yourself. When inflammation of the liver occurs, patients may experience feelings of exhaustion. About 10 to 20% of fatty liver patients develop hepatitis, which increases the risk of cirrhosis and liver cancer. So, what are the risk factors? Obesity. Notice how it's the first one in line. Waist circumference that's larger than 40 inches in men and 35 inches in women. High blood sugar level over 100. Triglyceride level, which is over 150. Low level of high density lipoprotein or HDL, which means 40 milligrams for men, 50 milligrams for women, or high blood cholesterol. These are all risk factors. So how can this be treated? Well, first of all, how do you diagnose? They need to get your medical history reviewed and do a liver enzyme examination. And then they do an ultrasound. And then they do a biopsy of your liver. Okay? There can also be other tests, for example, x-rays or MRIs or fibroscan to assess the hardness of the liver and the presence of fatty liver. But most of the time, there needs to be a biopsy. Do you really want to go through that? No. So, what are the treatments? First and foremost, safe and gradual weight loss through improved diet and exercise. To reduce fatty liver, it is necessary to lose between 5 to 10% of total body weight and about 10% to reduce liver inflammation. It is very important to change your eating habits to reduce carbohydrates, fats, and sugars, and add more fruits and vegetables. Exercise can control risk factors by reducing high blood cholesterol, diabetes, and high blood pressure to be at a healthy level. Avoid alcohol consumption. Avoid medications or food supplements other than those prescribed by your doctor. And of course, please go and have yourself annual checkups. It is very important that you have annual checkups. Now, I would like to go through this quickly before we go into the last one of our videos. What it is that we need to incorporate into our diet to try and avoid obesity or avoid being overweight. We need to incorporate whole grains, vegetables, whole fruits, nuts, beans, and plant oils as much as possible. What do we want to avoid? We want to avoid sugar-sweetened beverages, refined grains, fruit juices, potatoes, red meat, and of course, first and foremost, fast foods. So that is my presentation on what it is that we need to do and what can cause being overweight and being obese. there are many factors. I would like to kind of summarize a little bit about what the factors that cause obesity are. Genetics, an unhealthy lifestyle, our eating habits, of course, and our gut biome. So what it is that we have in our gut. Nowadays, there's a lot of talks about prebiotics and probiotics. Yes, those are very good. If there is no way for you to incorporate them naturally into your diet, eat pickles, for example, drink your kombucha, make yourself some kombucha, drink fermented drinks. I'm not saying go crazy with the alcohol. I'm saying look for alternatives. There are fermented drinks out there, non-alcoholic, that are actually pretty amazing. I, for one, do not like fermented drinks, but I actually found that there is, believe it or not, a cherry cola flavored one out there that does not have a high content of sugar, tastes good, and it was pretty unusual to find. You can do sauerkraut, you can do pickling. Anything that is pickled or soured helps your gut biome. Yogurts, anything that is fermented food. Think about what it is that you can ferment at home. You can put vegetables and brine them yourself at home. It doesn't have to be pickles if you don't like pickles. Carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, chili can be fermented. Get creative. Look online. Go to Google. Because think about it. It's your health that is at stake here. I mean, over the top, sleep apnea and mood disorders and depression, anxiety, self-esteem, those are the superficial ones. But if you dig it a little bit deeper, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, I named at least 13 cancers, all that. And then the longer you are overweight and obese, the higher the risk of everything clustered together. That by itself scares me in particular. And it's very easy to incorporate a nutritious and a healthy diet into your everyday. The easiest way to control your diet is to think about including more fruits and vegetables into your diet also. If you think about including just three portions of vegetables and 3 portions of fruit in your diet every day, you will realize how much of a difference that makes. Okay, before we finish this, there is a small TED Talk that I would like for us to watch, and I'm going to share that now. Let me go through this. Okay, making sure that I'm sorry if my internet is a little bit slow. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened here. There you go.
Morning. In the summer of 2000, my wife and I moved to the United States to work and live there for a number of years. It was a period of great personal growth. Unfortunately for me, it also involved my the physical dimension. In a matter of months, I gained about 23 pounds, over 10 kilos, and I didn't even realize it was happening. And I found it very intriguing. How was it possible that I gained that amount of weight without fully realizing it? Why was it so difficult to lose that weight again and to keep it off? And ever since that experience, I've been researching. One of the things that I've learned to appreciate is the wisdom of an ancient proverb that basically states, it takes a village. It takes the active involvement of the entire community to raise a child to become a healthy adult. And I've grown to believe that it will take the entire village to eradicate obesity. Now globally, there are 2.2 billion people overweight. And this has a whole array of serious implications. First of all, research has suggested that overweight and obesity reduces quality of life. Obesity is associated with all kinds of diseases, cardiovascular disease, even different forms of cancer. There are certain parts of the world where obesity is the leading cause of preventable death. Now think about that. We're eating ourselves to death. On top of that, obesity has a dramatic economic impact on the cost of the healthcare system. And it has been estimated that obesity will contribute to an economic loss in productivity of $47.5 trillion globally in the next 2 decades. Eradicate the $2 a day poverty rate in this world. To understand obesity, we need to bring it back to its essence. What is it? So overweight and obesity we generally define based on the body mass index. It's an index calculated based on your height and your weight, and a range of between 8, if your BMI is between 18 and 25, you consider it a healthy weight. If it's between 25 and 30, you consider it overweight, and if it's over 30, you consider it obese. Now, what is overweight and obesity? An excess of body fat. Now, where does it come from? The overconsumption of calories. And it has been estimated that you need to overconsume about 3,500 kilocalories to gain 1 pound of fat. And vice versa. If you want to lose 1 pound of fat, you have to reduce your consumption by 3,500 kilocalories. A healthy diet contains about 2,250 kilocalories on average. Now, my personal weight gain of 25 from a 25 to a 28. Now, I did the math. On average, it takes about 225 kilocalories overconsumption per day for an extended period to gain that amount of weight. I don't think that's a whole lot. And actually, when you look into this, 225 kilocalories is 1 glass of milk, 1 slice of bread with some butter and jam. Or a glass of apple juice and a brownie, or a glass of cola. It's not a whole lot. So effectively, that would mean if we can cut out any combination of these kind of products from our daily consumption, we should be back on track. With this in mind, it's also very tempting to conclude that overweight and obesity are a purely individual responsibility. Unfortunately, it's not as easy. The problem is that overweight and obesity are not driven by the overconsumption of 1 single product per day, or 1 or 2 products per day. Overweight and obesity are a result of overconsuming calories. And a lot of different mechanisms that influence that. I want to give you some examples. I want to ask Annegien. I just had some coffee, but I think there's some people over there that look a little hungry, so I want to offer them a little snack. It's always risky to do these kind of experiments with a smart crowd and a title that has obesity in it. So I want to ask the 4 people that were offered a little snack. 3 out of 4. So my little experiments seem to work. Thank you very much. This actually is consistent with research that has shown a similar fact. What you don't know is that the platter with food had some cookies, some chocolate, and some mandarins and some tomatoes. The mandarins and the tomatoes were in the back of the tray, and the chocolate and the cookies were in the front. A very, very small difference. Paul Rosen basically has shown that the sheer distance between you and a particular type of food influences the likelihood of picking. It's in a salad buffet, so think about it. Salad buffet, healthy? Woo. He basically demonstrated that if you place, I should say, a relatively unhealthy item of the salad buffet, for instance, cheese, okay? If you put it in the front or in the back of the buffet, it influences the likelihood of you picking it. Now, if you consume from the salad buffet multiple days per week, for instance at work, it could, on an annual basis, the sheer distance between you and the food could add half a kilo in weight gain. Now think about that. My own research looks at the effect of the size of a plate or a bowl. We basically find that with the size, put more food on it. Why? Because the same amount of food looks less on a larger plate. You put it on your plate, like, there's a little room for more, and you add on to it. We've seen this effect with children. We've seen this effect with adults. A little disturbingly, we've also found it in one study that involved nutritionists. People that are supposed to help us better control our caloric intake. But then again, chimpanzee. When chimpanzees are presented with the same amount of food on a large plate versus a small plate, which one do they pick? Small plate, very good. Why? The same amount of food looks more on a small plate than a large plate. And i.e., they're more likely to pick the smaller plate. Now, I won't admit to eating vla, Dutch custard dessert, 7 days a week. But suppose I would, and I would consume it from a small versus a larger bowl. Believe it or not, dessert. It could contribute to over 3 kilos per year in weight gain. But think about how often you eat from plates, from bowls, in the morning, during lunch, in the evening. It can have a dramatic impact on your caloric intake. So I brought these 2 glasses. So who of you drinks predominantly from these short glasses? Would you want to stand up? Would you stand up? Ah, because you might be needing a little extra exercise. So basically, before I forget to say that, basically what our research has shown is that even the shape of the glasses that we drink from influences how much we consume. And basically what we find is that it's the same kind of effect as a visual illusion. The same amount of drink looks less in a short glass than in a tall glass. So what do? We serve ourselves more. And even for orange juice, yes, it's healthy, but we can overconsume on products. And if you drink orange juice from either a short glass or a tall glass, if you drink from a short glass, it could, on a daily basis, 1 glass of orange juice, you overserve yourself with a residual 7 kilos to your weight gain. Again, this is not about the accurate numbers, it will be just an indication to show you what is going on. These are just examples of how our environment may influence our caloric intake throughout the entire day. And there's a ton of research on this. There are journals filled with research findings like these. Nevertheless, the obesity epidemic is still growing. Why is that? Now, I believe there are 3 reasons why the obesity epidemic is still growing. 1, we make decisions every single day that influence our caloric intake. That's a whole lot, okay? It might happen when we are purchasing products, when we are preparing and consuming products, and for instance, when thinking about eating it, storing it, or disposing of foods. Second, there are many personal and environmental factors that influence all of these decisions. It could be in the store, it could be at home, it could be at school, at work, in restaurants. Personally, I believe when I gained 23 pounds in the US, it was largely due to the fact that there's a high availability and easy access to high caloric food in large portions at very low prices. For me, that did the trick. Well, I mean, that does help a little bit, and you got a perfect storm going on. If you think about 225 decisions, and the many factors that influence those 225 decisions, it's very easy to imagine that 1, 2, 3 interventions are not going to resolve the obesity epidemic. But there's the third factor, and that's a relatively new one that has not been studied a whole lot, and that's one of action-reaction. For a long time, we assumed that the choices that we make, the caloric decision that we take during the day, are independent of one another. Unfortunately, that's not the case. There's a growing body of research that basically shows that these decisions are mutually dependent. We buy a bottle of water because we want to be healthy, we do a good job, then we pat ourselves on the back and buy some chips because we did such a good job. But we are effectively eradicating the health benefit that we generated from buying the bottle of water. And this happens at home, this happens in restaurants. We have some preliminary evidence that shows that it does happen in the supermarket. We buy a relatively healthy item, and we mentally to next buy a relatively unhealthy item. I personally also believe that this may be the reason why large-scale interventions to fight obesity are not very effective. Because we may be able to improve or increase the purchase of vegetables and fruits, but if that next means that we go out somewhere else and buy a big ice cream, because we did such a good job, then it's not going to be very effective. Because of the number of decisions, the number of factors that influence those decisions, I believe it will take the entire village to resolve this. And with that in mind, I'm calling on policymakers, on practitioners, and academics to join in. I think if you think about food manufacturers, that they continue with product reformulations, that they continue new product development to improve the availability and accessibility to healthy food items. If you think about retailers, I mean, they're the linking pin between the food manufacturers and us consumers. I hope that they can join hands, and come up with pre-competitive solutions when they shop to make more informed decisions. Policymakers and academics, they can inform and educate the public, the general public, us, but also practitioners. I think there's a big role for policymakers as well as academics to help practitioners come up with better solutions. I think we need to come up with multiple integral, holistic solutions that involve all critical actors in the environment, in the village, to start eradicating obesity. Now, it's very tempting to end here and say, let the village take care of business. Some people might believe that I'm suggesting that I take responsibility away from the individual. The opposite is true. We are responsible. The only thing that I'm asking for is that the village helps us make better decisions, to help us better execute the responsibility that we have. And as an individual, you're not only responsible for your own weight, you can also think about your own social environment. There's a lot of things you can do. You are. And today, one of the things you could start working on is on the size of your plates, the shape of your glasses, and make some changes in your own household. And with that being said, I want to ask you here in the room and those who are watching, join in, take your own responsibility, activate your village, actively participate in the village, so together we can start eradicating obesity. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to do the same thing that that gentleman did. I'm going to say, you right there can make a difference. Not only in your life, but in the life of those around you, your family, your community, your neighbors, the people down the street, your doctor, your educators. You can make now. Think about what we talked about today. Think about how even a small change, like eating in a smaller plate or drinking from a taller glass, incorporating 3 portions of fruits and vegetables into your diet can make a huge difference. Think about the dire consequences that being overweight can have on your life, on the life of those around you, on your family. Think about what would happen not only to you if you get sick, but also to those you love, those that are there for you or because of you, and how would that affect them? Think about implementing the changes in your house, like we said, in your community, in your school, in, like the guy said, in your village, in the people that surround you, and in your everyday life. I mean, you can think about it, school, work, family, house. A lot of all these places can be changed because of you, because of the small changes you can make that will affect you and those around you. And think of the dire consequences. Talk about it. Talk about things that you learn. What heard in this presentation with the TED Talk, Google it. There are a lot of things you can do that would make a difference and that you can learn not only from me, but from the internet. If you have access to YouTube, you have access to all of this information that I'm giving you today. So the takeaway for today is you can make a difference now for yourself and for everybody around you. All you need to do is make small steps. Use a smaller plate. Use a taller glass. Incorporate fruits and vegetables into your diet. Incorporate some kind of physical activity, even if it is 20 minutes of walking your dog for a longer time. Think about how you can impact you, and think about the dire consequences that can happen to you, those you love, and those around you if we do not take an active part in the change. Thank you very much for your attention. My name again is Maria Di Blasi. I am with Bridge to Health New Mexico. We are here also in Espanol, online, bridgetohealthnm.org. Look us up on Google, Bridge to Health. There's a phone number. We have email. You can call, text us, come and visit us. 628 Riverside Drive in Española. We are here to help. We are here to educate. We are here to provide you resources if you need resources. This is what we do. And we will be glad to be of assistance of any kind. You have a day, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever it is, whenever you are. And I will see you next time.